If you are a coach and your entire content strategy consists of just posting lots of free value to get coaching clients, let me give you a bit of a perspective shift as to why that no longer works in 2025, from someone that sold over $2.5 million in coaching and fitness programs. So I just want to reframe something a little bit here from this video. One of the biggest problems I see when I partner with coaches that have been in this for a while in terms of just posting lots of free value is a few things happen. Like the very first thing that happens when you're just posting lots of free value is you almost don't always have the respect of the people you want to work with. And what I mean by that is if you just give people lots of information and lots of knowledge, they can get that knowledge from ChatGPT, they can get that knowledge from Google nowadays. So you just giving people like you should do this all the time and saying that to them, a lot of the time people can end up thinking, why should I listen to this guy? Like, what's the guy's kind of credibility? Should I listen to that information? Is he credible? And a lot of the time that can be missing in a coaching kind of offer, right? So that's why one of the things that's super important is to have that side of things covered. So the first thing is you just giving people lots of information doesn't necessarily makes them trust you. It just makes them think everyone's giving me information online. Like, why is this guy any different? So we need to address that. That's the first thing. The second thing that's actually super important when it comes to giving people information, giving people value, and just giving lots of it is the biggest problem is it doesn't always lead to consistent kind of sales for a coaching program. And one of the biggest reasons it doesn't lead to consistent sales is because you're constantly bombarding people with new information, like new stuff they can be doing to move forward. And they just think, okay, I've just had this bit of a tip that I was given for a bench press, or this tip that I need to do with my diet. I'm gonna go do it, and I'm gonna get results by myself. And maybe one day, when I'm in a really good shape, I'll come back to this coach to get results. But the biggest problem is people don't implement. They lack the motivation. They can't lack the accountability, and you just bombarding them with lots of information all the time doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to go do it and get results. That's the second biggest problem. And the third one is it doesn't just lead to very consistent sales and consistent calls and clients coming in. And then obviously the last problem, which is super obvious in hindsight, when you're just giving people lots of free tips, lots of free help, is it massively drops your frame and drops your authority when you're just constantly saying to people, do this to get results, do this to lose weight. It just makes you come across a bit needy. It makes you come across a bit like you're just trying to people please. And the best coaching businesses have such a high level of frame and authority. Like the best clients, the best people in the industry that I've probably worked with have such a high frame, such a high piece of authority, and people just really trust that. So I think those three things are so important. And I'm going to give you a bit of a solution as to why and how you can change that frame so you go away from coming across needy, so you have high frame, high authority, and you actually have consistent and predictable sales just from posting content on the internet like this, right? The very first thing we need to look at is like you still need to be posting content, you just still need to be doing that, but the amount of value driven content specifically for problems, you just need to go and have almost like a magnifier glass, and you need to go much deeper into the kind of value content you're posting and what's the actual problem that content solves. What I mean by that is a bit of value content could be solving someone's problem with their training, with their nutrition, but that should only be 20% or 30% of the total content. The rest of the content, there should still be content in there that actually covers other bullet points like why should people work with you? Like why should people trust you? And what makes you credible to help provide a solution for them in terms of kind of fixing their problem, right? There needs to be a content around that. There also needs to be content on from your schedule and your posting that also just builds like and trust with yourself. I grew my Instagram following from 2k to 3k to 70,000 followers in 6 months just by being more personable on social media, just by sharing more of my thoughts. I've talked about like my beliefs around mental health, around kind of relationships, and granted, like, was it the best thing purely from a money making perspective. Maybe at the time I would have done stuff differently, but it's so easy to grow on social media and get leads and clients if you're just being your authentic self. So you just need to have a small percent of content, like 10%, 20% of your content, which is there to actually get really clear about who you are, what your beliefs are, what you do, and I think that would make a massive difference. And then the very last thing alongside having that, which I don't see many coaches actually have consistently, is have enough objection handling style content, and content that just directly knocks off people's beliefs as to why they need to work with you now. And one of the very best things you can do after this video is literally write down all the big objections that your audience has. So from the last 10, 20, 30 sales calls you had, what were people's biggest objections towards working with you? Did they object towards money? Did they object because their partner said it's going to be too expensive, or maybe they objected towards money, towards their partner. Maybe they objected towards they do want to work with you, but they want to work with you in 3 months' time. Rather than you just letting people go, rather than you just trying to handle this on a call, one of the very best things you can do is actually cover this in your content. So in your content, you can literally make hyper specific content, which is like, if you feel like you're trying to get started with your coaching business in 3 months' time or 6 months' time, here's why you need to change that. Here's why now is the right time. If you do enough of that kind of content and people watch all the way through of this content, the very best thing that's going to happen is people are going to start thinking, like I should get started now as opposed to 3 months' time or 6 months' time. And all these objections that they had, you're going to start jumping on people with calls that no longer have these limiting beliefs and kind of objections, because you literally talk them through it in your content, and it's just going to make content and sales calls and DMs and stuff literally, quite literally effortless. So those three things would make a big difference. So just to summarize in terms of the solution, is still have some content which is there to give value, but almost go heavier, almost with a magnifying glass when it comes to the value you're giving people, right? What I mean by that is make sure the value you're giving is value to the hyper specific people you want to work with. Like there's no point giving value to people that you don't want to work with or people that can't afford your services. Like the amount of times I've jumped on new calls with clients just before they started with us, and they're doing value content towards helping teenagers build their arms, but they don't want to work with teenagers. So really, and again, here's more examples of this. One of my one-to-one clients is helping Asians drop body fat and get in shape, but he was finding like a lot of his content attracting mums that are single moms and don't really have money to afford the coaching, and he doesn't really enjoy working with mums, single mums anyway, that are not super ambitious, and like all of these things, he just didn't really click with those that kind of avatar. And then we look at the content and the free value he's producing. So much of the free value was directed towards mums trying to manage their nutrition and their training and how to do it, because it got good engagement. So the one very amazing thing you can do is just really look at the kind of content that you're offering right now. Is the content you're offering, which is help driven, is it specific to the people you want to work with? If it's not specific to those people, you'd be better off not posting anything than posting that, and you can get a bit of an extra workout in the gym in the meantime. That would make a big difference, to summarize. So just make sure the value content is just hyper specific to the people you really want to work with. That would be the first thing. From there, I would also include into your daily content, into your weekly content calendar, like 3 other types of content. One is content that gets people to know about you, what you do, and what you believe in, kind of who you are as a person. If they were to go and have a coffee with you, like someone, a prospect, or go train with you in the gym, like what were the kind of stuff you talk about? Sprinkle some of this in your content anyway to build know, like, and trust. That'd be the first thing, to have more personal content. The second thing on top of that is just really going heavy towards the content that really handles people's biggest objections towards why they don't want to work with you right now. So make a list of the biggest objections you've had and people that have said they don't want to work with you in sales calls, in your messages, and really start tackling and covering that to move that forward, and it'll make your life, in terms of closing these calls, infinitely easier, as well. And then the very last thing on top of that as well is just having content which gets people to raise their hand to some extent to want to find out more about working with you. Like our clients crush that just by using Instagram stories, and we have like an Instagram story template which I'll put in the somewhere around here potentially, which you can kind of steal in terms of just having stories which gets people raising their hand to find out more about your coaching program and how it works. Those things would make such a big difference as well towards driving your coaching business. So if there's anything you can take away from today's video, is to reframe your mindset, reframe your perspective from just giving free value, and just make it much more strategic to grow, and really track the amount of people raising their hands, the amount of leads you get from your content. Get rid of everything else, get rid of the amount of likes you get in, the amount of followers, the amount of saves. Like, sure, that stuff is important, but is your content getting leads, and are the leads closing? If that's happening, you can be getting 2 likes or someone cares, but if you're making money, you're doing good, so that's kind of how I would take it, and where I would go with when it comes to posting schedule, and reframing that for maximum engagement, maximum views, and business growth. That's the biggest ones for today. I'm keeping these very raw. I'm on a bench here in Bulgaria in a very, very cool spot. But yeah, if you have any other topics you want covered in future videos, anything you want me to go through, if you just leave it in the comment section below, I can make sure to cover that. Peace.